Everybody, welcome to another edition of the Hot Seat Interview. I am your host, Leo Brady with AMovieGuy.com. I am really excited to be here today with an actress and also a producer for this movie that they have coming out. It is called Birdsong. The first person is actress who I've known from many of her horror movies that I've seen her in, and her work is great. She's an up and coming rising star. This is Chloë Levine. And then the producer of the film is Morgan Bentz. Thanks for being with me, guys.
Thank
Thank
you.
you. Thanks for having us.
Okay, so you both can answer this first question, and it's the first question we always ask on this program, which is what movie made you say, I want to be an actor or I want to work in movies?
Do you want to go first? Do you have one?
I don't have a specific one. I just know that as a kid, I think the first movie I saw in theaters was probably Lion King, and I just like was like, whoa, story and world making is possible. And then it was like off to the races after that.
Yeah. Chloe, what about you?
Well, I know that there were other movies before this, but I remember Hedwig and the Angry Inch, which now I'm like, how old was I watching that? Very interesting. But that was like the one that had like the most impact where I was like, I want to like make stories like that.
Yeah.
Um, yeah.
Yeah, that put the creativity in your head that you could do something like that up on
Mhm.
the screen. And The Lion King, that's a good answer, Morgan. The Lion King was one of my like first childhood like double features I saw, like, and it was just kind of I remember really loving that movie, even though I don't think it's my favorite Disney movie, which is very interesting.
Yeah,
Um,
it was
so
impactful.
so for for you, Chloe, you've made tons of projects such as like the OA for Netflix. You did like episodes of Mr. Robot, but like most of your work continues to be an independent film, which I love. What is it for you that keeps you engaging and working with these independent films of this sort of magnitude?
Well, for me, it's just about kind of like um, the script and the people who were involved. For the OA, the creators of the OA I had been fans of them for such a long time. And same with Mr. Robot. And then, in independent film, it's just kind of like I love the passion of it, especially when you don't have like the power of a huge studio behind you. Um, yeah, I've always been attracted to kind of that drive and that kind of like guerrilla filmmaking too. Like
Yeah.
just getting it done however we can. I like really thrive in that kind of environment.
Yeah. Well, and Morgan too, you can talk about it more from like the producing and creating side. Like for you, obviously it's like you never know what your budgets are going to be. You never know what you're going to be working with. So what, for you, is it just always an independent film type of style that you want to make, or is it something that it's stepping stones leading up to hopefully bigger projects?
Well, it was interesting because this was my first indie film to make, and I had been working in the TV world for a long time.
Yeah.
And so it was really fun to like be in the creative seat this go round and to not be under the studio pressure and like to not be,
Yeah.
enacting their will all the time. And I really strive, I see my line producers always have to be the no person, and I really like to be a yes producer. So that's what I'm trying to do in indie film, and it's been really a fun challenge.
Yeah. Yeah, well, it's interesting too. So Chloe, the first movie I ever saw you in was Jen Wexler's The Ranger, and Jen has been also on this show before. I am a huge fan. And it felt like you kind of broke out even more with her second film, Sacrifice Game. What has that relationship with her been like for you? What has it meant for you, and what sort of kept you going back to her?
I love Jen so much. I just love her so much. I after the Ranger we became really good friends, and it's always such a pleasure to work with, a director a second time once you kind of have like the baseline sort of communication.
Yeah,
Um, and I just love Jen. I love her brain. I think she's like an incredible artist. And when you watch, it's really like a treat to watch her direct, because it's watching someone who's like meant to be a director direct, you
yeah,
know?
yeah,
And Yeah, so I just love her. I'll work with her anytime.
Yeah, well, the two of you kind of look like twins. Have people talked to you about that?
We have gotten that before. Twins, sisters, yeah,
It
morphing into each other. Yeah.
Yes, right. Yes. Well, and tell me something too, though. Like all three of those films that we've sort of mentioned, with The Ranger, Sacrifice Game, and Birdsong, they're very different kinds of movies. All three of them, but also really deal with like isolation and loneliness in a way. Um, do you find a little bit, and you can, Morgan, you can even chime in here. Do you find a little bit of that that acting freedom and comfort when you're just working with like yourself, the DP? The producers and the directors are maybe behind the camera. Is that a lot? Is that comfortable for you at this point? Because you've done it a couple times where it's just a smaller crew and a smaller group of people in a room.
Yeah. Yeah, it's really nice. I mean, I think it's just such a like a centralized, intense creative space
Mhm.
when it's so small
Mhm.
like that. And especially on Birdsong, with Morgan being kind of like the overarching like creative voice of
Yeah,
our shoot. Um, I think yeah, it was just like really a pleasure, and I do just kind of like that space just because it gives me an opportunity to really dive into the character in an intense way.
yeah,
But with that being said, I was like very excited for the scenes when Rebecca Knox came
yeah.
because I was like, finally, I get to act opposite someone.
Right, right. Yeah,
And
Morgan. Yeah, talk about a little bit about that process as well.
I mean, Chloe, I'm so grateful that we had Chloe as starring as Bird in the film. And like some of my absolute favorite parts of the film are just all the silent moments. And I love that about the film because it's kind of unique in that way and that it asks you to kind of sit in that silence with her. And
Right,
Chloe does such a beautiful job. And like all that her face conveys is, speaks way more than dialogue, I think. And so it
right.
was a pleasure to do.
Yeah. Yeah, well, and Chloe, talk about that too. Tell me about your preparation for becoming Bird, because like there has to be a thought process. And I know I think I've read that you do a lot of like background character work yourself. You like to sort of like add your own type of music or movies or things that your character would like to do or listen to. Um, was was the direction from Renzo a big part of it, or was it all collaboration of who you thought this character was?
Yeah, I think it was a big collaboration. I did some stuff on my own, and the stuff that I did on my own, I spent a couple of days without talking, which was just like it was actually so nice. And I was like, maybe I should do this more. Um, but and I had my own music going, and my own playlist, and yeah, so we went through the entire script with Renzo, just about like kind of the details of things, and then when we were working, it was kind of like Renzo, our other co-director, Avery, and then Morgan. It was just kind of like this collective voice that we all sort of worked together.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, and it's you guys create such an ominous sort of like dark, but also like contained inside and outside tone, where what we see outside of the house is a little bit of activity, people, things going on. And then what we hear in the next door, her next door neighbor, there's things going on. Was there sort of did you want to make that space sort of feel retro in a way? Because like the music, all of those things that you have in that, even like your costuming decisions felt like very retro. It had to be sort of time capsuled and yeah, kept really like old school, not to be like influenced by anything outside of the outside world.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's spot on. And Morgan, yeah, Morgan was
Yeah, that was like one of the most fun parts of making this film, I think, was like creating Bird's world and what does that look like and what does the apartment give her or not give her, and when does the apartment finally let the outside world in? And if you think about how long she's been trapped there, that's where kind of the retro style comes into play.
Right.
Um, and then slowly influencing, with Salesia's music and contemporary style
Yeah.
was a fun kind of like shock to Bird's world.
Yeah. Well, and also too, even this might be a question for you, Morgan. I mean, is there even sort of like any sort of other movies that sort of inspire a film like this? I mean, it's such a, unique kind of like sci-fi, really. It really feels like two separate worlds coming together with these two actresses sort of meeting in a way, but also I found the ending to be so ominous and cool. Did you have any movies in mind when you like were even writing it or thinking about it or putting it all together?
I wound up watching a lot of old, movies from the 60s, some Hitchcock and Polanski, and was kind of pulling a lot from their kind of like style and the isolation and the female in danger,
Yeah.
in kind of subtle ways. So it was fun to pull in that influence. And then Renzo had a lot of different influence as well that he was pulling from more visually, I would say.
Yeah. Yeah, well, and it seems so too, Chloe. You get kind of an interesting it had to be a really fun sandbox to play in for you, because you're not just doing a type of acting with your voice, like you said. This is all like facial features, body movement, how you move one way, this way, or the next with the camera too, blocking, right? So,
Mhm.
tell me, like for you, was this one of the harder acting jobs that you've had to do? Because it's such a I mean, you do a great job. You do a fantastic job of like showing it on your face when you're not communicating with other people, getting the audience to think along with you.
I feel like, yeah, I think that it was challenging in some ways, and then in other ways it was almost like a relief that I could just kind of exist and not have to talk and to
Yeah.
just be really close to the experience that I knew the character was having in that story that we were telling.
Mhm.
So in one way, it's about being like completely vulnerable and letting everything up and through. And
Yeah.
then in another way, it's also like just existing in that place, which is just like a relief. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. When there's kind of like a sense of like, again, I talk about that like isolation that's created. And the movie opens with an amazing shot of birds like soaring free in the sky. And then it ends with what I thought was one of the creepiest, most ominous shots I've seen in a very long time. It is definitely one of the highlights of the movie. I won't spoil anything, but maybe Morgan, you could even talk to that. How was that final shot created? Was that just the plan all along?
Um, so Renzo and I reworked the script for a few months and kind of he always had a few different endings he was playing with, but that
Yeah.
was always kind of the front runner and the one we felt strongest about. And then Chloe and our co-director really collaborated on how to make it happen
Yeah.
and to be so powerful at the end.
Yeah, it works really, really well. All right. And well, last question for both of you. Obviously, like I was gonna say, like, oh, how would you two do surviving isolated, locked in one specific place for a long period of time? But I think we all kind of know about that with COVID and things of that nature. So I guess what would be the essential things that you would need in your house to sort of just keep going? Maybe three things that you can't live without.
Oh,
Very difficult.
it is.
I think for me, it would definitely be my television with a Roku player. It has to be
Mhm.
all connected. So,
I guess it depends for me if the apartment is happy to provide what I need or if it's kind of forcing me in a certain way. I would like to have creative outlets. I would like to have some books and some crafts of whatever nature. I would like to have a cat, but I don't know if it would allow that.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
cats
oh,
are great.
sorry.
No, go ahead.
I think, yeah, I would need a TV that has some kind of connection to the outside world, but maybe that's cheating. And yes, like paint, and I would love to have a cat walking around. Oh my God.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm glad to hear we're all cat people. So that's
Yes.
I'm a
Definitely
huge
got me
cat
through the
person.
pandemic.
So. All right. Chloë Levine, Morgan Bentz, thank you so much for being with me here today. Birdsong is playing Sunday, March 16th at the California Theater this weekend for its world premiere. Thank you both for talking with me today and can't wait for everybody to get to see Birdsong.
Thank you. Thank you so
Thank
much.
you so
Yay.
much.